Welcome to the Salty Driftwood Podcast. I'm your host, Eugene Gibson, and today's episode is titled Conspiracies Are Real. As usual, I hope and pray everyone is doing well, and if you aren't, I hope and pray that you will do better. Let's begin. Conspiracy. A simple term for describing what a conspiracy is that when individuals or a group of individuals get together and plot and scheme to do something that is illegal or harmful. So let's look at with using that definition, let's look at some conspiracies over the years. Just a few, but first I'd like to talk about the 19th century slave trade, where Europeans, Americans, Africans, and Arabs conspired together or plotted and schemed together to use slavery as a way to support their agrarian systems, plantation, and their trade system. So therefore, they all get together, collude together to basically form the slave trade and profit off it. Now, in some countries, in the European and American colonies, the slave trade was legal, but to the enslaved, it was quite very harmful. Based on the horrid conditions that the slaves were transported to the New World or to the Americas, based on the way they were treated upon being used as labor, their conditions, and just on the mere fact they were treated as property. I don't believe no human being should be treated as property. Back then they didn't think so either. So that was one of the first conspiracies I'll talk about. Then there's the other conspiracy. Let's move a little bit forward to World War II, where Hitler and his cohorts conspired to exterminate the Jews. Him and his cohorts got together, put together several laws and stuff to disenfranchise the Jews and then to eventually enslave them, also use them as slave labor. He was using them as slave labor. He just wasn't putting them, and he just wasn't just putting them in the gas chambers, what he later did, but he was also using them as slave labor. Of course, to the Germans at that time, or the Nazis at that time, they made it lawful. But it was a hard and horrific experience for the Jews. So therefore, that was another conspiracy. Let's move further. In the 90s, on the continent of Africa, in the country of Rwanda, where the Hutus conspired, the Hutus, a tribe in Rwanda, conspired to exterminate the minority tribe, the Tutsis, as well as other Hutus who didn't agree with them during the time. That is considered, in my opinion, a conspiracy where a group of individuals, the Hutus, got together and conspired to do something that was unlawful, I would think, and definitely harmful and horrid at that time. So that was, in my opinion, another conspiracy. Switching gears, let's move towards modern times in the business world, where conspiracies have been noted to exist, in such things as price fixing and market manipulation. For example, in October 2005, the Korean company Samsung, the phone makers and technology manufacturers, they pleaded guilty to conspiring with other companies to fix the price of dynamic random access memory or DRAM chips. They end up paying a fine, and they were considered to be an international cartel. And this was perhaps one of the largest antitrust penalties in U.S. American history. The fine was up to more than $920 million. So they admit to doing wrongdoing and paid the fine. So in that case, they admit to doing something unlawful, but not necessarily harmful. But in any event, that is considered a conspiracy. Let's even go further off. Let's think about drug trafficking. When our governments consider drug traffickers to conspire together to import and distribute what they deem illegal drugs based on their harmful effects to human beings. So when they bring drug traffickers in court, they usually try to charge them with conspiracy, the whole conspiracy from the manufacturer, from the grower, from the distributor, from the supplier, from the simple fellow on the street. The major drug traffickers, they try to charge them with conspiracy. As you can see from these examples, conspiracies are real. These are historical facts. Most of them I stated, or just about all of them I stated. I might not have all the details, but they are historical facts and they are considered conspiracies because individuals had gotten together and plotted and designed, made plans to do something that was illegal and harmful, and they were caught. They were caught. And in some instances, they aren't caught. People aren't caught when they're doing these things. The funny thing about conspiracy is we usually only learn about them after the fact. We learn about them later on. But sometimes during the times that these conspiracies are taking place, we know of them. But there's a little, I would say, a little trick that some of the conspirators use. They somehow get the conspiracies to be labeled as theories or conspiracy theories. In my opinion, when it comes to a conspiracy, the only theory there is that we can come about is the reason why they or these individuals perform these conspiracy. That's where the theory comes in, where we guessing or reasoning why they do it. And of course, there's some weird things up there where people believe conspired, but I believe I take all of them serious. I'll read them and evaluate them for myself to see if, hey, this may have some merit to it. Because that's one of the ways that these individuals, whether it be private entities, corporation, or just straight out criminals, that be the way they hide these conspiracy by somehow getting the information disseminated as conspiracy theory. See, that is the trick right there. When these conspirators could somehow be able to get their schemes and plans, what they actually doing, to be labeled as just theories. Countries have come forward in a way to try helping finding out these plots and schemes by offering protection to individuals who may be a part of the scheme to come forward and give details or give a warning to these plans and plots and schemes. Now they have what they call whistleblowers. I think in the U.S. it's called the Dodd-Frank Act. I think that's what it is. Not sure. But I think that's the act which protects whistleblowers. So now we are seeing now where more people are coming forward and exposing these conspiracies. But there's another way they choose to do away with the fact that they're doing wrongdoing. They're now labeling things as fake news. In my opinion, news isn't fake or real. News is just reporting of information. Now the fact remains, is the information accurate? But when you say news, hey, in my opinion, news could be fake or real. It don't make no difference to me. So it really shouldn't have any label. It's just reporting of the information. It's up to the person who reporting the information to make sure that the information is accurate. And sometimes you can't even do it. For example, let's say a news reporter on the scene of, say, a fire, and you have witnesses outside. He may interview one of the witnesses and ask them, hey, well, what happened? The witness may give their account of what happened, and in fact, that may not be the actual account of what really happened. So therefore, he's still reporting it. It's just news. Now, how the fire started or whatever, hey, he just reporting the news based on what the observer said. Is he wrong for doing that? No, it's just that he's reporting. Now, the information may not have been accurate. And that may be an example, that is an example to me, as to see that news is neither really fake or real to me. It's up to the individual who are digesting the news to analyze and cross-reference and to see that the information that they're reporting is right. Because now, in my opinion, news reporters and articles, social media, they publish opinions more than anything else to try to persuade you into following their belief or to get a certain amount of crowd to follow their beliefs. It's even been proven that as of recent, certain social media sites, from their postings or the stories that they like, they actually they do it to incite your feelings so that you could come on more, so that you could post more, so they could sell more ads, so they could use your data to sell more ads. So that in itself is a conspiracy, which is, I guess, through the whistleblower as of recent being brought forward. So folks, conspiracies are real. Now, yes, there are theories of the reasons why the conspiracy may come about, and there may be some incidents or some belief that collusion or conspiracy exists and there may not be one, but that does not change the fact that conspiracies are real. My suggestion is that when you hear information packaged as conspiracy theories or as such, my suggestion would be for you, as the person who consuming the information or digesting the information, to go out there and find out for yourself. Cross-reference the information. Go to other reliable, credible source and see if their information any different from what is information is being packaged as. And then you can move forward or dig a little further and go a little deeper, or go to set that some people say aren't credible. Because they aren't credible don't always mean that they aren't always sometimes giving accurate information. So it's up to you, the individual, process what's going through your mind. You decide for yourself. Like I said before, we never knew these were actual conspiracies till later on. Till a lot of people, some of these conspiracies we didn't know till later on. And some of these conspiracies upon us today, we may never know. Our children and grandchildren may find out. And they'll say, well, how come they didn't know that was going on at the time when all this was going on? It is because plenty of the information we are getting today is being purposely manipulated so that a certain desired outcome could be had by certain individuals for certain profitable reasons. That's one of the main reasons we don't see all these conspiracy nowadays. And another reason too, based on the fact that we've lost the curiosity that we've had as children. When we were children, we were very curious and we always used to ask questions. But my belief, when we go to the school and that standardized test system do away with that curiosity, that kill that altogether. So now, I think it was purposely designed too, in a way so that you will no longer have that curiosity, which leads to you to do one important thing, that is to question authority. So therefore, when your curiosity gone, you don't really have no reason for questions, and especially coupled with fear. If authority could somehow enhance general sense of fear amongst the population, then I should say we, because I'm a part of it too sometimes, that we can be controlled and they can control us, so they could have their desired outcomes, which usually selfish in most of the times, in their desired outcomes. Sometimes they've been being manipulated by private companies and other outside entities or other governments and countries, and they don't even know it. Other countries and private companies conspiring against them so that these outside enterprises could control citizens through the government. You see, I know I'm going a little too far with that one, but that's the way I see it. So going right back to what we initially started off with, conspiracies are real. The thing is, we aren't picking up on them as much as maybe we should, because at this time we live in a constant state of fear because of all of what's going on, which I wouldn't go into much detail in, but we live in a constant state of fear, real and in some instances imagined. We have lost our curiosity. We're starting to lose, or we're starting to be too oversubscribed to like risk aversion. So all these things help to squash our ability to look further, to ask questions. Therefore, we are more easier to control. Therefore, these conspiracies are more able to be covered up and kept from us until they've run their full course. We are living in some serious times. But I don't believe we know how serious the times are because we're so focused on our own individual lives and stuff like that, which is it's understandable. But at the same time, you must have another vision, another insight into what's actually going on and what I believe is going on. You may disagree. You may think, oh, that just business is normal and, that's just how it should be done. But don't forget now, when a lot of these conspiracies was happening, that's the same way they was thinking. Until they realized that a lot of these things were illegal and, for the most part, harmful. See, a lot of the times, too, like when these companies, they agree to these conspiracies that they did commit some wrongdoing, they're actually only admitting to the legal side of it. But most of the time, they don't choose to admit that they did something harmful, because then it'll be moved away, sort of away from litigation to now more it's a criminal act. Because when you intentionally performed harm on the public, so they tend to hurry up. Yeah. Let's just deal with the legal part of it and get it over with, because most of them sometimes will be charged with criminal acts, which we have seen in the past with some of these individuals and these CEOs and stuff. But they try to avoid that by just going ahead and admit wrongdoing and paying the fines. I hope that I brought it to your attention that from slavery to instances of genocide to price and market manipulation, through such things as importation and distribution of illegal drugs, that conspiracies are real and they do exist. In some countries now they have what they call Freedom of Information Act, where all the actions of the government per se supposed to eventually be disseminated freely so that the citizens could know. But while that's good, who really governing these private entities and private enterprises? Does these Freedom of Information Act also apply to them? What they doing behind the scenes, what is illegal and may cause harm to the public? Yeah, I like the fact that some governments are forthright with that. And at the same time, some of them have things in place where this information doesn't get released for like X amount of years down the road. By then, the conspiracy has already run its course, like I said before. So what use is that information to the general public when the conspiracy has already done its damage? But it's good that they do it. Like I say, who controlling these private enterprise and entities who really conspiring to do illegal and harmful things to the public, all in the name of profit. We can mention some other companies and some other conspiracies that may be going on. So at this time, we could only suggest that they may be going on. Some of the things in the pharmaceutical world where they're proven to be doing wrongdoing with some of the manufacturing of their medication. They just recently this year agreed to pay some fine for their part in the opioid crisis in the U.S., which once again they probably just admit to doing some wrongdoing, but they aren't admitting to do any harm or doing any harmful things to the general population. So they just, hey, pay the fine, let's move on, because bigger fish to fry right now and all what's going on. So these conspiracy do exist. And in the years to come, like I said before, our children and grandchildren may have the information. And they'll be sitting and wondering why we didn't do anything at the time. But little do they know that right now, we've tied our hands and our minds because we want to believe that, hey, everything is all right and everything is okay. Now, I'm not saying that everything is a conspiracy, but sometimes you have to look at things and put them in perspective and realize, like, hey, what's the motive for all of this? Most all the things in the world that happen in some shape, form, or fashion is done for profit. In the divine book it says, the love of money is the root of all evil. Not money itself. Money doesn't have any feelings or any advantages to it. Matter of fact, money does solve plenty things when used rightly. Because that's the system we're in. Because we're in a bartering system, an exchange system, and money is a medium of exchange. But it's when the love of money, greed, that causing most of these conspiracies to happen. Like I say, from slavery straight to drug trafficking, greed. See, sometimes people may sit down and plot these things, or they may be planning these things per se, and in their minds, they may not think that they're doing anything harmful. But as these plans progress and morph, and as more profit mindedness is coming into effect, as more greed coming into effect, that's when the illegalities and the harmfulness begins to display and shape and show their ugly head. So that's when the conspiracy really becomes, or the plan really becomes a scheme, a conspiracy to do illegal things or harmful things. And with that, I'll end. And like a conspiracy, folks, I ask you to be real. But unlike them, be good. Be real and be good. And have a good one.